So I posted on Front Porch Forum, and I also posted on the Barry City Community fan page about the budget and the local options taxes. The responses that I got were surprising, meaning not surprising to me, but surprising. I mean, it was surprising to me, but some of the people that responded that I would expect that would support our budget the way that it is and the local options tax, they were not supportive of it. One person, there was quite a few. I received probably 15, 20 responses, and of the 15, 20 responses, 3, 4 were supportive. And that is a little concerning. I know that as we are going to have one of our final discussions shortly about it, I personally would like to see a budget, and it's going to cause some heartburn with Steve. But I would like to see a 0% increased budget for this year. And I understand that, you know, we've got a lot of things, but we're also struggling. Our community is struggling financially right now. They're struggling because of increases in inflation and increasing in energy costs and all of these things that are increasing, and our city budget. And I understand that, you know, our budget has to go up just like, but where we have an opportunity to use some of that surplus to defend off that for 1 year. And that's my request. And I don't know if city council wants to do that. And if city council doesn't want to do that, that's your choice. But I think we should see it.
So, Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe next week on the agenda we'll have the last conversation, hopefully, for the budget. It sounds like you're going to see if any of those items that we haven't cut previously are items that council would reconsider. The other part of that is we'll have the FY22 second quarter update, I believe. Yep. Don will be here for that. And then we should be having the conversation on local options tax, which probably would be an expansion on this current capital improvement plan that would talk about how that could be applied to some of the capital streets and other programs. So I think that's pretty good timing. I think that addresses what you're talking about.
I would just like to see the budget at a 0%, what that would look like. That's all. But I don't know if we need council to agree with that. So, because that's going to take time for Steve, and I don't want to put something forward or ask him to do something if this council doesn't even want to see it.
Yes. Council, do you think you want to see a budget down to a 0%?
Well, to me, that really hits me as a last minute request. We've been talking about the budget for many months now. It's started at 5%. At no point in any previous conversation have you mentioned this as a benchmark, Councilor Boutin, and before you were talking about 3 or 2, and now it's down to 0. I think that's a significant change from your prior positions at the 11th hour, in my view.
Okay, and I understand that, but it's a response to, you know, the community that I represent. So that's okay.
I would just say that a 0% budget is not financially responsible and simply kicks the bills of the city down the road. Those bills come due eventually, and we have to pay them. And yes, and people are still absolutely struggling. One of the reasons people are struggling is because there's no more help coming from the federal or the state government for people who are struggling. A lot of the programs, the food assistance programs that I work with in my day job on a daily basis have since expired and are not being re-upped by the federal and state government while prices do continue to rise. And so I'm absolutely sympathetic. I work on food security issues as my full-time day job. But the bills for the city are rising too, and just kicking the can down the road is not realistic.
So Just the feel is I don't think that we need to have the manager go through that process to create a zero. If you have ideas that you want to bring, there's been items that were presented from the manager previously, and I would say that would be, you don't have anything new to add to the conversation, I don't think.
Well, the new thing that we'll have is just a discussion about how to deal with the advice from VLCT that says we can't have the allowance built in for the errors and omissions. That's about a $50,000 change. So I'll provide some guidance there. I mean, that's the, I think that's the only substantive new tweak that we'll have. But my goal was to provide one, I'll say final, for lack of a better word, one final opportunity to take a last look at the budget and try to reach a consensus on it before the meeting on the 25th, where we got to set the tax rate. In my mind, I think.
No, yeah.
The warning. I think Carol would agree. We want to have if there's any more substantive discussion about the budget, we should have that and reach a conclusion and not try to have that discussion the same night that we're setting the warning.
Yeah.
The night of deciding the warning language and numbers should be rather perfunctory. It shouldn't be a last opportunity for a 2-hour debate.
No, and I think we have next week to do that. And then it sets us up for the 25th for making
Yes.
sure that the wording's done.
And Mr. Mayor, last week's roundtable, you mentioned something about the errors and omission reserve, the 1%.
Well, that's what I was talking
That's
about.
what-
Okay, that's, okay, so that's,
Yeah,
That's
so
it.
that's a 1 cent that's currently in, if you look at the sheet, it's
Okay.
listed as a 1 cent amount. And basically, we were gonna have to make the decision of, does that mean we remove it, or is there some portion that we wanna have?
Yeah,
as-
and I'll have a hopefully a very informative package about that as part of the packet on Friday, so that you can be prepared for the discussion on Tuesday.
And if I could just say one more thing, just to be, for the record, like no one wants to raise people's bills. No one wants the city to be more of a financial burden on any of our residents. But there is just, it costs money to run a municipal government in 2022. And we have to be honest about those costs. And I don't think that a 0% would be honest.
And I get that. And the housing proposal tonight added $35,000 in staff, allocation for money. So that's the kind of thing that, we have to think about. And I've said it multiple times where, the priorities that we as a council are setting are creating more staff. And it does cost more money. And that's okay. You can disagree with that, but it is the case. And that's okay.
Councilor Shum.